And next on stage, I'm pleased to welcome the president of ASD-Eurospace, the main association representing the European space industry, Mr. Marco Fuchs. Mr. Fuchs, please.
Good morning. Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Deputy Minister, Mr. Director General, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It is the 18th edition of this conference, and let us be honest, repetition from one year to the next is not unusual. But this new year opens a very different chapter. It propels us into a more dangerous and unstable world, a world that requires Europe to come to age. The signs are encouraging. We hear about a future EU space shield that will deepen the link between space and defense. We saw a decisive and very successful ESA Ministerial Council. We see proposals for an EU Space Act and especially a new multi-annual financial framework. Let me start with an important note about the next MFF. And to be clear, everybody knows that around 50 billion euro will be needed to maintain the global leadership we have with Galileo, Copernicus, and to deploy IRIS² and the infrastructure that Europe needs to protect itself and to improve its autonomy. Success will now be measured by what we build and operate, what actually flies and actually works, and what actually protects, connects, and serves Europe. And for this to happen, readiness is fundamental. But readiness is not a slogan, it comes with clear implications. The first implication is that Europe must use the budgetary and political momentum to strengthen its own industrial base. The increase in space budgets shall translate into a decrease of our dependencies. If more European public money is put on the table, it is not to outsource critical technologies, critical systems, or critical supply chains. It is to reinforce vital industrial capabilities in Europe and take the control of our technological sovereignty by designing in Europe, developing in Europe, manufacturing in Europe, and by exploiting in Europe the capabilities we deem necessary for our autonomy of decisions and actions. It is not about isolationism, it is about giving ourselves the means to create real interdependencies with our allies and partners. Yet a structural challenge remains. The European space industry continues to operate with low profitability. This limits our ability to invest, innovate, and scale. Addressing this issue is essential if Europe wants an industrial base that is not only sovereign but also sustainable in the long term. I cannot emphasize this enough. Long-term financial sustainability of the space industry is key in the world that we are entering, as space systems are critical infrastructure and instruments of sovereignty, robustness, and resilience. The second implication concerns research, development, and innovation. R&D must find its place back to the top of the European space policy agenda now. If we want non-dependence, we need technological leadership. And if we want technological leadership, we need a strong and consistent institutional support for R&D. Industry is ready to co-invest and ready to take these risks. But this only works if R&D is treated as a strategic priority at European level and not as an adjustment variable. The third implication is perhaps the most political one. In today's geopolitical and industrial context, intra-European cooperation is no longer just a nice-to-have. It has become an existential issue. A large part of the world is explicitly waiting and even acting for Europe to divide itself. Fragmented demand is our structural vulnerability. This is where Europe institutions play a central role, not to impose uniformity, but to guarantee cohesion. Cohesion means interoperable systems. It means augmenting national capabilities with European services, aligning national initiatives, connecting funding streams, and it means leveraging national programs to build real European capabilities. Industry is ready to cooperate differently across companies and across borders, notably by unlocking and integrating the potential of emerging European space ecosystems into our value chains. The fourth implication, Europe must be able to run what it is now announcing. Space programs are long-term, risky, and technologically uncertain. They usually involve moving consortia of actors. They evolve over decades, not budget cycles. They require, therefore, institutions capable of orchestrating complex ecosystems, of absorbing risks, of maintaining direction over time, even when the political, economic, or security context shifts. As it has always been the case, industry is ready to engage in such programs, ready to commit capacities, and ready to mobilize its supply chains. But readiness on the industrial side must be matched by readiness on the institutional side, starting, as I mentioned, from R&D and then up to the exploitation phase. Because there is indeed a fundamental difference between delivering to a development agency and serving an operational customer. While one optimizes technology, the other optimizes service continuity, resilience, upgrades, and costs. If Europe wants space and ground systems that truly support its policies, its security and economy, it needs institutions able to act as competent long-term operational customers. Customers who understand large complex systems, who manage performance over decades, and who can drive industrial transformation. We need to build an operational culture. The institutions are moving. They put programs, instruments, and resources on the table. Now comes the real exciting part, turning political will into industrial capacity, turning programs into systems, and turning budgets into capabilities. The European space industry is ready. Give us predictable demand, coherent policy, and realistic rules, and we will deliver European space sovereignty. I wish you an interesting conference, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.